everybody. Welcome to October's Poverty and Homelessness Board's general meeting. I am Chris McAllister, Chair, and would like to have everybody go through and introduce themselves, and maybe anybody struggling will be able to hop in at the end. So I'm not sure what the best way to start this out, because I see everybody in a different order than I did last time. But can we please do introductions? Starting with Noreen.
Oh, sorry, Chris. I just didn't know if you wanted us to jump right in.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Noreen Dunnels with United Way, Vice Chair, and I would tag Paul. Maybe we should just tag people.
There we go. I like it.
Good idea. Paul Solomon from Sponsors, and I will tag Mayor Venice.
Thank you. Lucy Venice, Mayor of Eugene, and I will take Julie Weissman.
Julie Weissman with, I just pronounced my name wrong. That's hilarious. Julie Weissman with, with Women's Space.
I'll tag Dr. Kincaid on Julie's behalf.
Rick Kincaid, Community Health Center's chair of the healthcare work group, and I will tag Jacob Fox.
Hey everybody, Jacob Fox from Homes for Good, and I will tag Michelle from Shelter Care.
Hi, I'm Michelle Hankus from Shelter Care. I'm still learning everybody's names and faces, so I'll tag Pat Farr.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm Pat Farr, Board of County Commissioners. I also serve on the Human Services Commission, and I will tag, how about you, Lisa Stewart?
Hi, this is Lisa Stewart. I am staff with the Human Services Division, and haven't been paying a good enough attention, so I will tag Steve Manella.
Hi, I'm Steve Manella. I'm the Human Services Manager at Lane County.
Sean Murphy. I don't think we hear you, Sean.
Try this again. I'm Sean Murphy with Laurel Hill Center, and I will tag Dave Haviland.
Hi, Dave Haverland, United States Department of Veterans Affairs and Chair of the Employment Committee. And has anybody tagged John Radich yet?
No, they haven't. I'm John Radich, District Manager for Oregon Department of Human Services, and I'll tag Kirsten, excuse me.
Kirsten. She might be in this only mode.
Hi, I'm sorry, it's Kirsten London. I work for Looking Glass. I'm on the Shelter Stakeholder Committee and then also on the Youth Homelessness Solutions Work Group as well.
Thank you, Kirsten. Has anybody not introduced? Oh, go on. Has anybody not?
I haven't. Cheryl Balthrop from Eugene Mission. And looking down the list, I'd tag Diana Aldridge.
Diana Aldridge, staff support for the committees and the Human Services Division. And who do I get to tag? I'm going to tag Pam Woodall.
Okay, not hearing a response. Can we have everybody just let's see here. Who hasn't spoken? Hope, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Hope Burrell. I'm the program manager for First Place Family Center's Night Shelter Annex.
Excellent, thank you. Brianna? Brianna?
Hi, Brianna Vincent, and I'm a project coordinator with Connected Lane County.
Excellent, thank you. Brian?
Hi, this is Brian Lang with Pacific Source, Director of our Lane County CCO. I'll take Danielle.
Hi, Danielle Bautista, Lane County Human Services Division staff. And I'll tag John Fox if he hasn't gone.
I'm John Fox, City Councilor from Coburg.
Thanks, John.
And I don't know how to tag.
Brooke? Brooke Freed? Excellent.
Hi there, Brooke Freed, Eugene City Manager's Office.
Excellent, thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, hello, I'm Aaron Box. I'm your newly appointed faith representative. Look forward to actually meeting you all in person someday.
Thank you. Aaron Fifield?
Aaron Fifield with the City of Springfield staff.
Excellent. And let's see here, Amanda?
Hi, Amanda Borda, Lane County staff.
Excellent. Tim? Tim Garner? Excellent. And I think, do we have two more people left? Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Lambert and I'm with League. I can't tag anyone because my screen is too tiny, so whoever would like to go next.
Excellent. I think that we have almost everybody. We tagged Pam, but we haven't heard from her. And let's see here. Other than that, I think we got everybody. Thank you everybody for coming to this meeting. We have a full agenda. And
Mr. Chair, a quick request. Can Brian Lang once again say who he is?
Yes, sir. Brian?
Yeah, I'm with Pacific Source. I'm Director of our Lane County CCO.
Excellent, thank you. And counterpart Amanda Cobb could not make it today. And I believe our youth representative from the McKinney-Vento, Deborah, was unable to make it. And Brittany Quick-Warner, who represents the business side of things, was also unable to make it today. So I thank everybody for being here. If we missed you in introductions, I apologize, and we'll catch you next time. Feel free to leave a message in the chat with any contact information if you're new, and be happy to reach out to you. Moving forward on the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from August and the accept statement of revenue through the consent? So can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. So can we name who moved and who seconded for Diana?
Diana, I did. Michelle Hankus, Shelter Care.
And I seconded Lucy Venus.
Excellent. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all for the approval of the minutes and consent calendar?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the consent calendar carries. Thank you. Let's move on to committee updates. Starting with the Shelter Stakeholder Committee. Mr. Chair, would you be willing to do so?
I can do that. So we met this month, had a pretty robust meeting with an expanded committee. We're working on a number of different issues. One thing I will point out is that I have served as chair of this committee for since its inception as originally Veterans Operation 365 Housing Committee, and I have suggested that I step back as chair, and I believe at our next meeting we'll be electing new leadership and a new chair for that committee. So, Mr. McAllister, Chair McAllister, you've been a part of that committee. Mayor Venus, if you want to add anything, please.
Mayor Venus.
Sorry, I'm scrambling and looking through my notes and trying to remember if there's something I want to add. So if someone else wants to come in, I'll just brief, but I think I don't, at this moment, don't have something to add.
I'll be happy to say that I'm excited about the expansion of the Shelter Stakeholder Committee. I understand that there's more lived experience now present, more providers present, and I thank Commissioner Farr for helping lead that so that the voices are spread more throughout our community. I know that we're looking to get more rural representation, and I think that that's one of the few things that would actually make that even a stronger committee than it already is. So thank you for your leadership there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one wrap up on that is that that committee is one committee that has traditionally, from its inception, invited all people joining the committee as a guest to join at the table in the discussion. And I'm hoping and expecting that that sort of a format will continue, because it is one of the few forums where people can actually step into a government committee meeting or a government sponsored committee meeting and be a part of the meeting as a participant and as a debater and as a guest. So once again, I'm hoping, not sure exactly where the leadership is going to go, but we have a number of new members who bring a great deal of experience to the table, and I'm excited about the future of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Thank you. Is someone present to represent what the Youth Homeless Solutions Work Group is working on? Kirsten?
I can present. I mean, we did not meet this month, so I don't have any notes to share with folks, but we're looking forward to next month's meeting.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Let's skip over League for a second and let's go Healthcare Committee. Dr. Kincaid.
Thanks, Chris. The Healthcare Committee continues to work on its 3 primary focus areas related to care coordination, discharge planning, as well as care in sheltered environments, and then lastly, the medical respite. We have been working, Daniel Batista and others have been working on a variety of grant efforts, and we're hopeful of being able to obtain those to try to help us with that work. Teresa Rourke has been helping coordinate some efforts to create a common agreement across multiple agencies to do this work going forward, and that's helping our relationships and defining sort of our organizational roles across the healthcare spectrum. So I think that work also will help contribute to this. And we have spent a fair amount of energy over the last couple months, obviously, trying to troubleshoot and help with wildfires and continued COVID support.
Excellent. Thank you, Doctor. And Mr. Heverland, will you share with us what's going on with the Employment Committee?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, the Employment Committee met on 10/1 via a go-to meeting. And after brief program updates from the committee members, 2 presentations were made. The first by Heather Licky, who outlined a housing and employment hub project with strong background in agriculture and supported employment type opportunities. She also provided an overview of a disaster relief tent manufacturing project that she is leading. And those projects or opportunities would create growth and potential for commercial sewist. And a sewist is someone involved in commercial sewing. The second presentation was by Mitra Gruhl. She showcased her gig economy focused work with establishing the entity Discard Upcycling and the Viking Textile Maker Hub. And this would be a place for sewists to gather and use commercial machines in their pursuit of employment and training. The committee meeting was a perfect place to bring together Heather and Mitra, and we're looking forward to their collaborations, helping the unhoused with emergency shelters, tentage, and the employment and training opportunities that can emerge from that. Community will continue to address the gap analysis update document from 2017. That was employment provider services. and we'll strive to bring supportive employment strive to bring supportive employment opportunities to the attention of those in need and foster collaboration amongst our community partners. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Chairman, could I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
This is Mayor Venus, and I just wanted to jump in, David, on that report, that your comment about the SOISTs. We just had a joint meeting, City Council and Board of Commissioners yesterday, and there were questions, and it may be that Sarai will get to this later. There were questions about a tent that has been designed in Eugene that could be used as a emergency shelter, and there was a question about who might sew those tents if this was a local thing. So I'm just wanting to make sure that the employment committee and the shelter stakeholder committee, working with Sarai, make sure that we connect, that work is connected, because there may be an opportunity there.
Certainly, and I'm aware that Heather and Mitra both have spoke, and the idea of sewing the tents, if you will, at the Viking Sewing Hub was discussed.
Okay. Great.
Excellent. Well, thank you, David, and thank you for that follow-up question, Mayor Venus. I'll speak really briefly about what LEAGUE is working on and has been up to. LEAGUE stands for Lived Experience Advisory Group for Unhoused Engagement, and that is a work group that is consisting entirely of former homeless persons, and we've expanded our membership to bring on a single father with veteran status to be able to help flesh out some of our conversation. We are currently looking for people out in the rural community to come in and apply. We are working on our state of homelessness address, which takes into considerations the lived experience view on how things have been progressing over the year, focusing on issues such as safety, hygiene and sanitation access, and whether or not we are prepared for the winter going forward. Some of the comments recently have been focused on what COVID has done to our early planning, and how some of the plans that we've worked on have kind of shifted and changed as we look at non-congregate options and trying to engage with limited resources, including volunteer capacity, as COVID has jeopardized a lot of our senior population, as well as some of our medically fragile. There was also a recent meeting. We had Sarai Johnson come talk to us about the inclement weather strategies, and we had Mr. Dan Hurley of the Public Works come and ask us about what are our thoughts on utilizing county parks, and what are some of the barriers and suggestions and problem solving that would have to happen in order for that to be viable. And so as this body has flirted with that concept over the last couple of years, we feel like the conversations are able to happen. Finally, LEAGUE was looking at options of doing a write-up on both the COVID response from the homeless perspective, as well as law enforcement engagement. These are trying times for many of us, and frustration levels are high, but we still have to remember that people have no place to be, and how do we treat people with dignity? So we're excited to move forward and look at the new rollout, and LEAGUE is interested in helping inform the strategic plan as we start to move forward. That concludes my LEAGUE update. Is there any questions regarding the committee updates?
I do, Chris. You know, I should have asked this probably years ago. I don't know. Do we have charters for each of the committees, the subcommittees of the PHB? Maybe that's a question.
Steve, would you like to take that on?
I believe, and Amanda Borta could help me with this, but I believe that we have some committees with charters and some committees without charters. And I think it's a desire to get all of them chartered.
Okay, thanks. I just, as committee work evolves, just, curious, especially with the Shelter Stakeholder Committee, as it was primarily focused on veterans, and it sounds like it's expanding now. I I don't know why I've never asked that before, but it just occurred to me to ask it today.
Yeah, we did do, this is Amanda, we did do some work to develop charters, I think for most of the committees at this point, and I think the majority or all of them have an individual work plan as well. So perhaps we can revisit that and review those at a future meeting or at the beginning of the new year.
Excellent. I would like to maybe even make a request to all of our committee chairs to forward their current work plan and charter to leadership, so that way we can make sure that we can support those who may not have it or need to flesh it out. And certainly would like to revisit that during one of our next meetings if the body approves. Mr. Farr.
Thank you, Chris, Mr. Chair. That was such a timely request because in particular with the Charter and Stakeholder Committee, its charge has changed significantly in the last 4 months. Consequently, what we have as a work plan is really outdated. The general concepts are good, but Noreen, you pose a good question specifically directly for me, and I will make that one of my last acts as the existing chair of that committee is to request work on the modernized charter. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. A point of business to the, let's see, one sec. We had a question as a new member of the community. Julie Weissman asked, she would like to know what all the committees do and how membership is defined.
So Chris, I can answer that. This is Amanda. We'll be doing, I have it on my list of things to do an orientation for the new members of the PHB. We do generally do that. We're just a little bit behind on getting that going with everything happening right now, but I do have it on my list for the new members. So I will make sure I get a full list of everyone who needs that orientation, or if anyone needs a refresher on any of that, reach out to me and let me know, and I'll do that virtually sometime in the next few weeks.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amanda. With that in mind, we have a point of business. I've been requested to amend our agenda slightly. If I see head nods, I would like to do that. We've been asked to have data and analytics added to the agenda today. And so if I get some head nods, then I'd like to have that go next. Same couple. Okay, excellent. Amanda, would you like to set that in motion, please?
So that would be Lisa Stewart on our staff if she has an update. Lisa?
Hi, Amanda. Can you go, this is Lisa. Can you go ahead and share let me share my screen, please.
1 second.
While we're doing this, I just want to thank everybody for adjusting and shifting with new times and accepting these virtual meetings as a workable item. I know it's very frustrating and confusing sometimes, but thank you for sticking with us. And sorry, Michael Gannon, for the late support getting you into this meeting. But thank you.
All right. So this is just going to touch base real quickly on where we are with sharing the data to the public. If you go to the Human Services webpage at Lane County, there is a new link on there that reads Homelessness in Lane County. And that will drop you onto a page where we will be posting all of our visualizations and other reports about homelessness, so the public can take a look at those data and hopefully find something we've missed and help us with some of our planning and where we're going. The report that you are familiar with is this Homelessness in Lane County that Dana and I have showed several times. This is now public facing, so anyone can view it. And there is a information page that tells you about what you are going to be seeing in the report and how to use the report. And then there are the population data, and that's where we are today, is the 3,823 persons experiencing homelessness in our community that are engaged with our homeless system in some way. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll, even though I know that causes vertigo, sorry. You can see the the history of our report. The blue bar is this year, this calendar year. The I don't know what color it is. I'm going to call it ecru because that's obscure. That color is last year, so we can see a comparison of month to month. We've also added a couple other ways to sort. We've added household type, where you can sort by families with children, adults only, which are singles or couples, and children only when unaccompanied youth is present in the system. You can also go check this out by the inflow information. The inflow is the number of people who are on the report in September who were not on the report in, what's the month before September? August. And this lets us know who is coming onto the report and would be a prioritized group for doing immediate action from our case conferencing and street outreach folks. And it also tells us whether they're new to our HMIS system or whether they were previously housed and are returning as homeless, or if they were on a list in the past and now are back on the list, like they had disappeared for a while and are back on. The outflow details are also pretty important information to know. That is the folks who are no longer on the list in September, but were on the list in August. And this is our number that we're really interested in. How many of those people who flowed off of the list actually got housed?
Mm-hmm.
So please take a look at this. And if there are questions or if you have any updates or information that you'd like us to include, you can email us at this HSD Help Desk email address. And we can keep on building this up. It is not a one and done. This is something that we're going to keep on developing. And we're really excited for your input.
Excellent, Lisa. I have a couple questions, and then I'd like to open up questions to the rest of the board. May I ask, do we have this list broke down by region? Like how many people on this list are Eugene? How many are in Veneta?
We do. It's right here.
Awesome.
In that page, and then you can sort that by veterans or household type, or what else do we have? Whether someone's chronically homeless or not. So you can still apply those filters on any table in this page.
Thank you. Two more quick questions. One is, do we have the ability to see if how many people are actually on the coordinated waiting list? Are all these people coordinated waiting list participants?
They're not. There's 186 people on this list who are on coordinated entry or one of our wait lists. So that's 186 out of 3,823. So we might have a ways to go on that.
Yes, that's fair. And finally, from me, do we have a means to figure out how many of our people on this list may have barriers such as a felony or have been laid off? Is it able to collect those type of data?
This list does not collect the data because these data come from, it's a good question though. I like that, where you're going with it. These folks, how you get on a list is that you engaged with any social service provider that is using the homeless management information system. So they may have just received a food box or a meal or a shower voucher. So those details, such as, are you engaged with criminal justice? Do you have a felony? Those are not collected by those types of sites. They are collected like in coordinated entry. We do ask those questions, but for the most part, we aren't collecting that at the front end.
Excellent. Would anybody else thank you, Lisa, very much for that. Would anybody else like to ask questions? I see Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lisa, this is an amazing set of data that you've compiled, and it's easy to interpret, easy to access. I'm looking at the page right now, and there are numbers that in the past we've had to search for, and now you have them all in one place. And there are a number of key items on there. I hope everybody has a chance to open this up on Lane County's website. It takes a couple of clicks to get there, but the data is amazing. I'm looking at by the numbers right now. And one that jumps out and one that we should all be very interested in on a regular basis is the inflow outflow box on the by the numbers page, which the most recent data shows an inflow of 1,110, an outflow of 510, with a net change of 600. But that's the kind of information that we need to increase the urgency of the work that we do. Lisa, outstanding. Thank you very much. Steve Manella, thank you for the work your team has done to bring this to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that John? Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's also asked in the chat, but where is the link to the page, or how is it found?
Oh, I will put that in the chat.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa.
Yes, you bet.
And a great question, Councillor Fox. Is there any other questions regarding this data or this site?
I'll just let you know that by next month, we will have all of the housing inventory for emergency shelter, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing posted on the website. And we will be able to show you, sorry, I'm showing you like random stuff right here, but we're going to be able to show you what the inventory is on an average utilization for each month, so we get a better idea of how we are using the inventory, the needs, if everything's at capacity, and it will look something like this report, where you'll be able to see by agency, but also by type of program, whether it's emergency shelter, alternative shelters such as Dusted On, our camping program, or other shelters which are more programmatic, where you can't just walk up to the door and get in it, but they are helping people be sheltered. But we'll be able to take a look at that and look at it per month. And I think that'll be really valuable to the folks who are working on developing additional resources for the community.
Thank you, Lisa. Quick follow-up question. This presentation came about, we already had the data, but but we're using it and able to display it better by adopting Tableau?
That's right.
Excellent. So it puts a face, so to speak, to the numbers. Excellent. Well, I really appreciate your and Dana's tireless work on this. It helps people start to see visually what we're working with as providers and agencies and local government. May I ask, is there a way for providers to contribute or accent and support this data? Is there ways that they can report or be more involved in making sure that while we do have these people identified by name, but maybe getting some of that missing data, such as status or employment barriers, things like that?
That would be great. And thanks for letting me put a plug in for that. This information is coming from all of those frontline workers who are collecting the data and entering it into our system. So to encourage the management of different agencies to allow space for these frontline workers to take the time to enter complete and accurate data will result in better reports and better decision-making by our leadership in the community.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much once again, and I look forward to seeing how this goes forward throughout the next year.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Can we have our agenda back? Excellent. Danielle Batista, Jacob Fox, would you be willing to check in and let us know what's happening with the Commons?
Sure. Danielle, if it works for you, I could just kind of start with the construction part of it and say the more exciting part of the update, because Danielle gets to talk about the human beings that will be given a home in the near future at the Commons on MLK. So I want to backcast a little bit. At Homes for Good, developing specialized housing for populations that are marginalized in our community is part of our DNA, and it's a part of our DNA that we're trying to enhance and grow. I would give a shout out to Paul and sponsors, because I really think sponsors helped embed specialized housing into the DNA of our organization in like 2008, 2009 with Roosevelt Crossing, and again in 2017 with the Oaks of 14th. I'd also give a shout out to Pat Farr and Steve Manella. We really began talking about the Commons on MLK
before it had a name, while it was a concept in 2015. And really just thinking about how we could develop a specialized property for the chronically homeless in our community. So I just want to give a shout out to the two of them for their leadership. I'd say kind of a fun fact was that Steve Manila was really insistent that the state of Oregon could actually give us funds without going through a competitive process for this project. And he really kept being persistent with the state of Oregon in the way that we all know Steve Manila can be persistent. And our friends to the north in Portland really started lobbying the state of Oregon for non-competitive funding for permanent supportive housing. And the state of Oregon doesn't like to give Portland everything it asked for. So they did give Portland a relatively small increment of funding, but they also gave the Commons on MLK $3 million that was non-competitive because of how compelling this project was. So there's just a lot of rich history, and I'm sorry I can't really call out every person that's helped with this project, but it has been really a community and what I would call kind of a family effort to develop a housing solution for people that are most marginalized in our community. So I was just looking at my calendar in preparation for the few comments I'm making. On November 14th, it was a Thursday of 2019, before all the unexpected trauma of 2020, we all gathered on the Surbu campus to break ground on the Commons on MLK. And 11 months later, we're moving quickly towards completing the project. So we're due to actually complete the project in terms of the construction on December 22nd. We have some other work to do around getting furniture into the building and ramping up supportive services. Shelter care and Lane County have just been really foundational in terms of making this project a reality. And shelter care in particular, I want to give the team there a shout out because the supportive services plan for the Commons on MLK is exceptionally complicated. And they've just done a terrific job. So once we get sort of the services ramped up and things like furniture and art in place at the Commons on MLK, we get to start moving human beings that deserve a home into the Commons on MLK. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Danielle to talk about that part of the process.
Thank you. So I'll just talk a little bit about who is going to be going in and that timeline a little bit. So you can go to the next slide, Amanda. Oh, yep. So talk about the eligibility and prioritization process as well as the referral. Next slide. Okay, so a little bit more on the program overview. So again, this is 51 studio apartments of permanent supportive housing by Lane County Behavioral Health. And then this is a huge partnership. So Shelter Care is providing the supportive services, and we have Quantum providing the property management. It is a collaborative effort. We meet every month trying to get all of the details lined up and making sure we're all really client-centered. And the services, there's going to be peer support on site as well as a lot of housing-based case management. The goal of trying to alleviate that individual's homelessness and then to keep them housed. So we're using that housing first model. As Jacob mentioned, the anticipated opening is going to be this January. And we're going to do a phased visa process. So we'll begin with about 15 people moving in January, and then we'll have it fully leased up by the end of May. So it'll be some cases of time to get, make sure when we have the help be fully staffed up with shelter care and go from there. So next slide. Okay, actually, before I talk about eligibility and prioritization, so we actually will have a notification that the wait list is going live that'll be on Tuesday. So you might get emails saying that we're opening up. So to be considered for their project, someone has to be chronically homeless, so they have a disabling condition, and they've been homeless for 12 or more months in the last 3 years. This is going to be for singles, adult-only households, so it's going to be a minimum occupancy of 1 with a maximum occupancy of 2, so there could be partners in the building. We are prioritizing people who are on the FUSE list or are part of FUSE, so these are our high utilizers of crisis systems, and this is the part of the reason of why we're having such high intensive services on site, because we're focusing on this high need group. They also need to be at or below 50% of area median income. And then there's some other criteria because we are using project-based vouchers for the rent and for utilities. So they cannot be a registered sex offender and no history of manufacturing meth in a federally subsidized housing unit. Next slide.
Quick question, Danielle, if I may.
Sure, Chris.
You mentioned that 1 to 2 people could be in this unit. Now, are families or like in terms of a parent and a developmentally disabled individual, would they be able to stay as 2 people in one of these rooms, or is it simply couples?
Yeah, great question. So we don't define how the household is. So the household can define, so the relationship to each other is not important on our end. So we will be pulling from our central wait list for this. And we have a list that is specific to adult only singles. So we'll be pulling from that list. So we won't be pulling from the list that pulls for families with households with children, minor children, but definitely a parent and an adult child, they could be considered a household.
Excellent. And Kirsten London said that if a 2-person household, they both have to meet the eligibility and prioritization requirements. Is that correct?
It's the head of household needs to meet the chronically homeless criteria. The other household member would need to be experiencing homelessness though, but we're not going to have the chronic status. But and then when looking at the rest of the income is going to be the household income. Yeah.
Thank you, Danielle. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So the referral process, again, this is all going to go through the central waitlist or coordinated entry system. So potential tenants must get a front door assessment. As I mentioned, the waitlist notification is going to go open this upcoming Tuesday. And we have a number of front door agencies in the community where they can do front door assessments, but we anticipate an uptick of calls, and sort of to alleviate that on our front door agencies, we have set up a dedicated temporary phone line and email through Lane County. So we'll field those interest calls through us. And then we have someone who will be doing front door assessments. So there's the line right there, the 541-682-HOME. Right now, if you call that, it'll just give a notification that we're not actually, we won't be monitoring that until Tuesday. And then if it's a known FUSE participant, just so you know, we actually have, our outreach team has been working really closely already, trying to work with the FUSE individuals, getting their front door assessments done, and thinking about how, if they may be referred, and looking at doing some pre-screening already. Next slide. Okay, so you can go online, just go to lanecounty.org/MLK Commons. That's where we'll have information about the units. We'll have a list of frequently asked questions, and we'll keep updating that as we get more questions. So it'll have the list of the phone number for people to schedule a front door assessment. So I encourage you to take a look at that website. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Chris, could I make just a quick clarification?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So I just want folks to know that the prohibition against housing a registered sex offender is not like something that Homes for Good or Lane County came up with. It's actually prohibited in federal statute as part of the housing choice voucher program. We do not agree with that statute and think it should be repealed, but there isn't a political will at the national level to repeal that prohibition. So I just want folks to know that in the projects that we partner with sponsors on, we do provide a home to people that are registered sex offenders, and they're one of the most stable, safe sort of subpopulations of people returning to our community from prison. So that could be a whole nother presentation, but I just wanted to make sure that we clarified that.
Thank you, Jacob, for that. And I was just curious if we could, Paul, do you know about the number of units we might need to be able to account for that population, knowing that a lot of the federal vouchers have preclude them?
Well, I mean, I think we do a really good job of actually housing that particular population of individuals releasing from prison, people that are on active supervision in the community, and folks coming out of the jail. I think where the housing needs are unaddressed for this population are for people who have criminal histories, who've been out of custody for a period of time, in many cases may be stable in the community, but continue to struggle with the barrier of a conviction history, and that precludes their getting into stable housing. So that's something that I don't have a good number on. But what I will say is, because of the Oaks at 14th and some of our other properties, we do a much better job than most communities of housing this particular population.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you, Danielle and Jacob, for this presentation on the Commons. Having seen it before the ground broke, seeing where it's at now brings hope. So thank you, everybody. Is there any other questions for Danielle or Jacob on the Commons? Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since Jacob mentioned my name, thanks, Jacob. And I defer any incentive on this to other people. You know, the original genesis on this, a couple of names that you didn't mention. It was when Alicia Hayes was the head of Health and Human Services. I used to meet on a monthly basis with Alicia and Karen Gaffney when she was the assistant. And back in, I think it was early 2014, I told them that I would resign if we didn't put more support into housing first and permanent supportive housing. Now, I said that tongue in cheek, I probably would not have. However, at that point in time, it was instrumental to get the full commitment from the entire board of county commissioners, which we did. And that gave a lot of latitude for people to move forward with this particular project. And this is a project that has been catalytic in not only projects in Lane County, but all over Oregon and even the rest of the nation. So superb work for all of the boots on the ground. I'm at a very high altitude watching this all happen. And it really is remarkable. All of the pieces, Jacob Fox, that you, Steve Manella, and everybody put in place. So outstanding. I'm so excited.
Thank you. For the sake of time, knowing that we have a couple people leaving at 1, can we please move forward on the winter strategies planning updates? And anybody who would like to know more about the ESG CV of those leaving, we'll be happy to have the information forwarded to you. Sarai?
Thanks, Chris. Chair. Hello, thank you. Yes, everybody, I did an update yesterday, probably a little bit more comprehensive at the joint elected officials meeting. Hey, bud, I'm on a call. I have some feral children running around my house, so just forgive the background noise of glee and joy. So anyway, that meeting is posted now, I believe, on both the county and city's websites. So if you would like to see a video of a full TAC update, as well as some winter strategies updates, it's there for you to see along with the PowerPoint. However, I can give you the lowdown here. Yesterday in the meeting, I was talking about our overarching goal. The goal that the city of Eugene and Lane County had agreed on is up to 500 to 1,000 beds what we are really trying to do, as you may know, and having been at many of these meetings before, you probably do, that we are really trying to reduce reliance on EGAN warming centers as much as we possibly can in this winter under the pandemic conditions. A lot of things are complicating this. Largely, the fire has also kind of thrown a huge wrench into this, and we are still working on sheltering solutions for people at River, while also working on winter strategies here. So right now we have about 240 beds that have been added for this season, including 5 new rest stops that the City Council of Eugene had approved on September 30th, which is huge. And really an unprecedented number of beds that they opened up in one decision. So we'll have about 75 at each of those sites for the winter. And then as rest stops in the ordinance, they can bump up to 20 people per site after 6 months of successful operation. So we're looking forward to adding those additional beds down the line as well. On the county side, we are really working to engage with our other areas outside of the Eugene UGB. So more conversations are happening with Cottage Grove. I'll be talking with Florence and City of Springfield again today to see what the lay of the land looks like in both of those areas. Cottage Grove is right now looking to place 18 pallet shelters on a site that they own to house folks for the winter as an alternative to their Beds for Freezing Nights program. And that's based on both the number of people that typically show up for Beds for Freezing Night and some anecdotal information from community sharing about how many people they typically serve each month. So I just shared with Richard Myers, who's the city manager in Cottage Grove, the HBNL link, and I think that will be really helpful in that planning. So that is exciting, partly because it will be a really good way to get conversation going with Cottage Grove on the overall homelessness systems transformation work and adding units work. And they also have long-term plans for that site to potentially create an opportunity village style tiny house village there. So this is really good momentum. I'm excited about the rural community's participation. The pallet shelters that I mentioned are a structure that is produced out of Everett, Washington, that is able to be deployed and then packed away and then redeployed for future needs. So my thought on placing those is largely where can we sort of forge some ground in some different municipalities, whether they would have a short-term interest in making sure people stay safe this winter and both, hopefully, thinking forward into the future about the same sites that these pallet shelters will be on for additional longer-term sheltering strategies in different communities. So this is kind of the way that we're going about this. We right now have 240 beds of the 500 to 1,000. So need to add about 260 to 760 to get to that real number that we are looking to get to. In the meantime, we're also working with a group of folks kind of cross-sectionally on warming strategies in the metro area. And so we're looking to what does that look like under some COVID protocols and potentially deploying some rapid testing on site for those nights that they do activate and some things like that. So yeah, lots of things are in motion. I will say that, to make it more depressing, although I do feel hopeful, but the depressing part is that because of COVID-19, we ended up with a net loss of 194 beds from our existing shelter beds that we had online before COVID happened. So right now, we're really only about 45 beds ahead of what we normally would have. So a big part of the challenge this year has been, one, trying to maintain shelter capacity, which we haven't been able to keep up with. And two, expanding individual non-congregate shelter options for people who, really need to be separated from each other and not sleeping in congregate spaces with people that they're not typically associating with. So that's the majority of what we've got going on right now. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Soraya. Mayor Venice, Noreen Donald, and then Mayor Venice.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarai, for your report. Quick question. I'm just wondering where we are with the turnkey effort. Is that happening, or is it just I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the Project Turnkey for everyone else is a motel and hotel purchasing kind of project that's happening across the state. They did some analysis and located a few hotels in some counties, although they didn't really unearth one here. We did have a potential site that we at first thought would be within our range. And then it turned out it was more in the $22 million range. And we were like, oh, that would be great, but we can't. So right now, I don't think that we have a hotel or motel that we're actively pursuing. I know Jacob Fox and others have been working with real estate agents on even just cold calling properties to see if any are willing or interested in selling. And so that's kind of where that stands right now. We have a little bit of a interesting market for hotels and motels here, I think, because of our, large winter or our large, Olympic trials and all of the track and field things that we have happening here. So most hotels are kind of holding on.
Thanks, Sarai.
So I just wanted to jump in here, Mayor Vinnis. I don't know whether you said this, Sarai, and I just didn't catch it, but the city did approve just 2 weeks ago 5 additional rest stops, which initially will house 75 people, and then when they're up to full capacity, will house 100. So, and the goal has been to get those up and running this winter and move as quickly as we can, sort of setting up the facilities and identifying providers to service that. So that, again, we're still trying to make up for what we've lost, but it was a step on the city's part, 5 new sites across the city.
Yes, absolutely. And that is something to be celebrated for sure. And we really appreciate the city council taking that bold action to add beds within the UGB. So thank you so much for that, Mayor Vinnis.
Yes, thank you for those 2 questions and for that update, Sarai. I've got a question for you, Sarai. Knowing that we are at a net loss for beds and knowing that there are different needs in addition to winter coming up, such as the need to be clean, have access to hygiene, and be able to stay as non-congregate as possible. Are there efforts or monies available or presenting themselves in our community to be able to help create that as we move forward on our winter strategies? Or is that something that we need to appeal to our local and state representatives?
It is something that we definitely are aware of and are actively looking to find places where people can go who have those kinds of circumstances. I don't know offhand whether that's something that is officially a part of an individual solution, but I would say that what we would welcome is right now the county has or will be out soon, I believe, services and navigation RFP for the winter sites that will be coming open. So we would really be interested in any community partners who are willing and able to help set up camps where people can be as they are and not have to overcome various barriers to enter. So that would be really helpful for any service providers who have a interest in that. I think that would be a kind of a part of that process.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Yes, Steve?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that on that topic that the city of Cottage Grove has purchased at the cost of $60,000 a hygiene center for their project in Cottage Grove, and similar to what was done in Salem. And so I think there's opportunity as we find out about additional money, and Amanda's going to be talking about our ESG CV to look again if in fact we need if it makes sense to purchase some more permanent kind of sanitation for folks.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair McAllister. You should be particularly interested in that latter, which is a 2-stall shower unit, including a access unit. Includes 2 bathroom stalls. For that kind of price, we should look at getting a lot of those. And Sarai, a question for you. On Monday, the city of Springfield is going to be passing an ordinance, and I know that Erin Fifield is on this call also. Can you say a little bit about the camping ordinance, or the driveway camping ordinance that's going to be presumably passed by the city of Springfield, and how that may affect not only refugees from smoke and from the Holiday Farm fire, but potentially chronically homeless people? Anything that you can say about that, or am I kind of putting you on the spot there? Erin, you're on board.
Well, I believe that Erin Fifield is here, and not to put you on the spot, Erin, but I think you probably could speak to that better than I can if you're willing to do that.
Sure. So there's some nuance to it. I believe it's an ordinance that isn't outright allowing RVs to an individual to sleep in an RV on a private property, but it's sort of deprioritizing the code compliance effort that the city would otherwise do. So currently it is not allowed in Springfield for someone to live on private property or commercial property in an RV, but recognizing the housing need, particularly from the fire and also with COVID, we sort of are having this conversation about maybe in terms of our code compliance efforts, so long as health and safety is being maintained, maybe this doesn't rise to where we will follow up in terms of code enforcement. So I don't have the ordinance in front of me. I think there is a time period with which we're choosing to pursue this. But the difference right now is that it's not an allowance, but it's so much having to do with sort of not, like I said, like prioritizing the sort of maybe other important code violations when knowing that there is a need for housing and shelter here, if that.
Thank you, Erin. That's a perfect explanation. I think the ordinance was published in the council packet today. I will be a fly on the wall Monday at that Springfield City Council meeting.
There'll be a lot going on that Monday.
I would just like to highlight, thank you, Erin, for that explanation and helping us navigate that. I would rather say that it's more, instead of allowance, it's more tolerance with a sunset. And so I understand that they were exploring, the council was exploring options about if this does happen, how long does it stay, and what is the process to help people shift into other options after this sunset has been reached. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so it, like you said, there's a temporary time period for it, and kind of like you're saying, not an allowance, but whatever the words you used.
Excellent.
Bravo once again, Springfield.
Mayor Venice.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to thank Springfield for doing that. I think that's a really terrific step forward. I guess the difference between that and the car camping program that the city of Eugene has had for years is that the city has required that property owners make sure there are bathroom facilities and garbage pickup in each site. So your ordinance is not including that requirement. Is that it?
No, it does. So long as there is sanitation and trash services available, then the complaint sort of doesn't rise to the level that maybe we would otherwise pursue. I guess I don't have the City of Eugene code in front of me either, but I believe you allow individuals to live in RVs like on a price. So that's kind of where this is a little bit going. Like we have the parking program in Springfield, and that's similar to St. Vinny's needing an agent, but in this case, there isn't another agent. They don't need to register. And so that's where I think it starts to get a little bit different.
Right. A little more flexible. So that's great. Yeah, I mean, Eugene has used that car camping program for a couple of decades. So great to see you step into it. I think that's very exciting. Thank you.
And strangely enough, in a previous life, I was the chair of the committee that wrote that ordinance back in the 1990s. It was the Council Committee on on Homelessness and Youth. It's evolved since then, Mayor Venice.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Brooke, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I just wanted to thank Springfield for taking that step. I think it's really meaningful, particularly right now, and have just really appreciated the partnership of Springfield as we have dealt with both COVID and looking at the results of the the fire as well. So I just really appreciate all the steps that Springfield's been taking. And in particular, Aaron, your partnership in a lot of these working groups.
Thank you, Brooke, and I'll echo thanks to Erin for her hard work over the last few years, just trying to make all this stuff make sense and letting us know where it stands. So that said, Amanda, do we have anybody in queue for public comment?
Not that I saw.
Okay, so echoing a comment in the chat, if you would like to participate in public comment, please put your name in the chat so we can queue you up. And I would like to give Amanda, as best we can, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to do a ESG update.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think it might be a quicker update than I had anticipated, so I have plenty of time. So I'm just going to give sort of an update on where we are with our ESG Emergency Solutions Grant CV funding from the CARES Act. So if you remember, I presented previously that in the first round, which we refer to as ESG CV1, we were allocated $990,307. At this point, that has been allocated partly to street outreach. So that's an RFP that has been released and is due November 10th. So that will add FTE for street outreach in our East Lane County areas and rural communities. And then we hope to add additional funds from our ESG CV2 to add additional FTE in other areas. In addition to that, we are now in a position where we understand better our ESG CV2 allocations. So Lane County was directly allocated $1,114,950 through direct allocation from OHCS for ESG CV2. And then in addition to that, OHCS is making available to Lane County specifically $6.7 million and some change for through a competitive process. And so you might remember I explained before that they sort of split that out where they directly allocated a portion and then are making a portion available through a competitive process. So we got a little bit more information about what that looks like this week. We anticipate they will release that that RFP sometime in November, and then the awards and process and everything will happen by January, February. And so that timeline is something we're still going back and forth with the state on, and how we can use those funds right now to support our specifically our winter warming and shelter strategies, because February is a little bit late. But we do understand that we'll be able to use those funds for costs incurred retroactive. And so we're just kind of trying to figure out the details around what that looks like. But we do anticipate at this point we would potentially be able to use that for some of our winter activities. So those allocations altogether result in about 8.8 million in ESG CV that we will have to support our efforts in preventing, preparing for, and responding to COVID-19 and to support our shelter activities. So at this point, I do have a sort of very drafty document, and so I'm sorry I don't have it to share today. I wasn't able to get some details that we need, and I don't want to confuse folks. So I hope to finish that up and have that available by next week for folks to look at all of this in a little more detail. So I touched on a few things that we're already working through for ESG CV funds. In addition to the street outreach I talked about already, we hope to support the microsites and rest stops that the city is standing up, as well as some additional kind of safe sleeping areas with services, housing navigation services. So that's something we're looking at for our ESG CV2 allocation, as well as adding emergency health and mental health services into our street outreach. And that's sort of a concept we're still developing. So under the emergency shelter category, you might have seen that we do have a RFP released right now that is due tomorrow for a hotel motel services and case management to support sort of an emergency shelter program through a hotel motel. So that we do anticipate utilizing our allocation to support those activities. We also have an RFP out right now that is also due tomorrow for additional 50 emergency shelter beds for specifically individuals at risk and who are medically fragile. So that's part of our ESG CV2 allocations. Those are sort of our kind of firm commitments at this point. Beyond that, there are sort of concepts developing and planning happening, specifically around winter warming shelter sites and how we can use ESG there, youth emergency shelter, and for winter warming, as well as homeless prevention that we hope to add later on down the road with our ESG CV2. And then lastly, rapid rehousing. So we hope to add an additional 75 units of rapid rehousing with our ESG CV2, as well as some family assistance in rapid rehousing down the road as well. So those are sort of the concepts that we're working on right now. And I hope to have final sort of estimates of those allocations and a summary kind of chart of all that information by next week, once we know a little bit more about how these RFPs will go that close tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amanda. Is there any questions for Amanda regarding this process? Mayor Venice.
No, actually, just thanks for that report. It overlaps with what we heard, the joint meeting heard yesterday from Sarai. You know, there are so many moving parts here. I mean, the county has CRF, Corona relief funds. The city has Corona relief funds. I'm assuming the city of Springfield has Corona relief funds. I think with this body, because it's multi-jurisdictional, as we gradually go forward and dial some of those in, it would be actually helpful for us to see how all of those are coming together rather than be talking. I mean, it's very hard to keep in one's mind, right? Where the city is using funds and where the county is using funds and how those two relate. And are we talking about the same funds or different? I mean, it's that we're talking about the same project or different project. I mean, I know there are a lot of moving parts and it's all together, but it relates to what we're able to do now in sort of an emergency form, but it also relates to where we're going and kind of our long-term planning. So I just plant that seed. I recognize it's a little premature, but it would be very helpful if by the end of the year, when funds have been pretty clear what the different jurisdictions use those funds for, and you know, how much money. I mean, we have to report that by the end of the year anyway, presumably. So just putting that out there, that we're a multi-jurisdictional entity, it would be nice for all of the jurisdictions to be reporting together on a similar table so that we could actually see it all.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention particularly to the elected officials and I sent Pat a copy of communication today that I'm being pretty persistent with the state of Oregon about the fact that they've allocated the 6.7 million to us, but because they want to go through a process that it won't be available until February 18th. And so anyhow, I emailed today Chair Buck and Commissioner Farr, and I think we have staff has a legislative meeting set up, City of Eugene and Lane County staff next week. So, you know, and I will bring it up there as well. These funds are available by the federal government through January of 2022. But the problem is that we're having to enter into leases and agreements that go beyond the initial money that they're giving us directly. And that puts us in sort of a risk position, you know, and we don't want to be in the position of saying, well, you know, we're only going to do this through, you know, February or March. And then if we don't get allocated funds until February, it means that a lot of the other services like the healthcare, mental health services we'd like to be providing this winter, we won't be able to do those until later on. So I just wanted to mention that for the record.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. I know that all of this is kind of a little messy with the funding streams and the growing and ever-changing needs. So thank you to you and your staff for having to navigate this on our behalf. with that in mind, I'm going to do a last call for public comment as there's a couple agenda items for next time that I'd like to bring up. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to public comment? Going once, going twice, sold to the PHP. That said, I would like to ask if there are any agenda items that people would like to have come forward in the next agenda. I have a couple proposals, but I want to hear you first. Also, I'd like to ask about before we meet next, if there's times that work better for attendance or for better access, I want to reach out. I had 8 members of the PHP reach out and ask to not have the meeting this week. And so knowing that we had short turnaround in time, I want to make sure that we are having a lot of the voices. We're missing Springfield's elected voice because of conflicts a lot of times on the same time at the same day. And we also have members like our economic seat who we really need to have at the table. So if there's any times that people think will be better or that would work better, please reach out to Diana and Amanda to maybe help see if we can find something. Secondly, I'd like to propose, we had talked about doing some panel discussions so we can better understand what the providers are encountering, what the agencies are encountering as we inform both our winter strategies and our next year and 5-year plan. And so I'd like to maybe field some ideas about what some panels might consist of beyond the initially 4 panels that we talked about having before the end of the year, which is a youth provider panel, a housing access panel, a job and barrier panel, and a overall rural community engagement panel. So if there's anything that's missing from that scope or scale, please let me know. I'll put my contact details out in the chat, and also would be happy to meet one-on-one or as a group to discuss this further. Is there any other agenda items that people would like to see or hear about? And I'd also like to invite some of those who have not spoken yet at this meeting or maybe asked a question in chat to put your 2 cents in if you'd like. Or we can sit and say hi. Julie, did you?
Yeah, I really appreciate being able to participate in this meeting. It was really good to hear about the progress on MLK as I stayed in the parking lot with Nightingale just behind Lane County Behavioral Health a summer myself about 5 years ago. But it's amazing what a difference a few years of community engagement and running down resources can make. It's still a 24/7 job being homeless, and the efforts of our community to ease the burdens borne by our most vulnerable, especially with winter coming up, to have access to resources is so appreciated. Also, the homelessness data link, as well as the other resources provided, are very helpful. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. I'm encouraged for the winter time now.
Thank you for that comment, Julie. Your experience is very valuable and invaluable to our process. So thank you for your participation on the Shelter Committee as well as League and making public comment today. We have 9 minutes left for the time allotted. I know that we are all busy individuals and busy agencies. So if there's not any additional items, I'd like to maybe request that we reach out to all of the elected governments that are involved in the Poverty and Homelessness Board and be able to figure out what their current scope and scale are for looking at winter strategies. And that way we can inform our decisions as a community and advise by the data. I'd also like to thank again Lisa Stewart for bringing this data to our eyes and helping find a lovely presentation for it to be able to be better received. Is there anything else that people would like to speak to? Hearing none, seeing no hands. Thank you for attending the October general meeting for the Poverty and Homelessness Board, and I look forward to working with you all. Have a great day. Meeting adjourned.